everyone, and welcome to my gorgeous kitchen. Now, one of my favorite things to do is to make bread, and I have shown you on some of my other little episodes how to make breads like focaccia, pizza base, that kind of thing. But I've recently discovered a gorgeous bread which is even easier to make than any of those, and that is ciabatta. Now, ciabatta is a bread that is really quick to whip together, and I'm just about to show you how. But the easy thing about it is we don't have to knead it. So usually with bread making, I would throw it into my sexy KitchenAid with the dough hook and I'd let it mix. This one, all we need to do is a stretch and fold, and I'm just about to show you how that's done. So all we need to do is start off with 350 grams of a baker's flour. Now, if you can't find a baker's flour, just use a plain flour. We are then going to add a teaspoon of instant yeast straight into the bowl. I love one bowl cooking. I've got 280 mils of hand hot water. Now, if you're going to use a cold water, it is going to take a lot longer for your dough to start. So a nice, just a bit hotter than lukewarm water. I always call it hand hot. And that'll activate that yeast much faster. Now, all we need is a little bit of salt, just like 1 teaspoon of salt. I always find that adding salt adds to the flavor of the bread. Now, that is exactly how easy it is. All we need to do now is, I would never stick my hand in there. You would have dough all over your hands. I use a lovely strong spoon just to bring this dough together. Now, it is going to be a little bit wetter than any other bread dough that you are used to, and that is absolutely fine because that is exactly what we want here. Oh, and also 30 mils of extra virgin olive oil just to give it that beautiful texture and a little bit of flavor. So all I'm doing is just using this lovely strong spoon, and eventually all of those different ingredients, your oil, your salt, your flour, your water, and of course the yeast will come together, and you will be left with something that looks like that. Now, what we need to do now is just scrape everything back down. This bread is going to do its first proof. Now, generally, at this stage with other bread doughs, you would definitely put this either onto a bench with some flour and knead it, or into one of your stand mixers and knead it. This really is just going to sit to the side for about 10 minutes. Now, it really does depend on where you are in the world and what the weather is doing. So if it's a warm climate, you will find that in 10 minutes, this will have doubled in size. It'll be really aerated and very loose. If it's a bit colder, 20 minutes to half an hour, and it'll be ready for its first stretch and fold. Now, when I say stretch and fold, and I'll just put that to the side, they always say in the movies, here's one I made earlier. And if you have a look at this guy, you can see it's definitely doubled in size. And then I will show you how easy it is to do the stretch and fold method. So the stretch and fold is really easy to do. As you can see, I've got a little bit of just tap cold water ready here. And what we're going to do is just wet your hand, because if your hand is wet, the dough will not stick. Don't try this with a dry hand. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my hand under the dough and then just bring it over back to the middle every time, just wetting my hand and bringing it just into the middle, just like that. So you're just going to move your bowl around and then just keep this dough going towards the center. You'll find it almost feels like a balloon. It's got a really strange, gorgeous stretch to it. And this is heaps of fun, very therapeutic, and I absolutely love making it. You literally only have to do that 4 times around the bowl. I sometimes do it, just go around one more time because it is so much fun. And then what we need to do is put a cover over this and let him prove for another 10 minutes and go all over again. Now, even while I'm doing this, what you will see happening in the dough here are some gorgeous big air bubbles, and that is because this is a much more hydrated bread dough than most of the pizza bases and focaccias that you might have made. So with the extra hydration, what the dough is able to do is create these huge air bubbles that add to that beautiful texture that you love about ciabatta. Now, the best ciabatta is when it's chewy on the inside and crunchy on the outside, and I'll show you how that is done. So once we've done that stretch and fold about 2 or 3 times, we are ready to bake our gorgeous ciabatta. Now, bearing in mind that it's a little bit wetter than you are used to handling, but of course I'm just about to show you how to work with it. I always spray my tray, my baking sheet, and my oven is preheated to quite hot actually for bread making. We're going to go at 200 degrees Celsius. Now what I want to put onto that baking sheet is just a little bit of flour, just so that we don't get any sticking. So I always do that, either semolina or polenta, depending on what bread I'm making, and just get that nicely coated, just so we get a nice sexy brown bottom. Now, before I take this very flopsy ciabatta dough out of that bowl, and I had a few bowls going just so that it was easier for timing. So what I've done is put a bit of flour onto the bench and then just scoop this very wet but very aerated dough. So at this stage, if it's not aerated, I don't think you put your yeast in, and you would definitely notice that by now. So just scoop it on there. Now, it depends on how big you would like your ciabatta dough to be. You can do one out of this 350 gram batch. You can either do one loaf, or if you're in a bit of a hurry, I would recommend cutting it down into two. So as you can see here, I've got just a pastry cutter. You can just use your egg lift or something. I'm going to cut it into two parts, and you can see that every time that I touch it, I'm just using a little bit of that flour just to help me along. So I always say flour is your friend when you're handling wet dough like this. So not the water anymore, but the flour. So what I'm going to do is just reshaping this beautiful dough, and I'm very happy that this is feeling very light for its size, which means, and I can feel them in there, these big loose air bubbles, and that is really what you want to achieve with this dough. Now, if you can see there, I've just sort of flattened it down, not too heavily because I want to keep that aeration in there. I've just shaped it into a gorgeous mini loaf. I can put that onto my baking sheet and then handle this next one. Now, once they are in their shape, they are going to have to sit on this baking sheet for just another 10 or maybe 20 minutes, just until we get some more aeration coming in. Just by handling them, we have lost a little bit of the air bubble, and we will need to get that back. So that's quite nice if you're doing this for later, for a dinner party or a lunch. You can get them onto the tray, leave them for 20 minutes, and then bake them. Now, the thing we like about the ciabatta, and you will see them do this for baguettes and any of the other crunchy loaves, and this is how they do it, is other than having this little bit of flour on there, which is going to look gorgeous and very designer, we are going to splash just a little bit of water on the top of our bread. So when we put water, and not a whole jug of water, but just a little flick with the water, you can use a spray bottle if you have, but I find it's quite easy just to sort of put some of that water on there. When this goes in the oven with that beautiful 200 degrees Celsius, it's going to create a very sexy crust on this. And about 10 or 15 minutes into the cooking time, just as these have started to go brown, I'm going to open that oven door, sprinkle them again, close it, and let the oven do its magic. Beautiful ciabatta bread fresh out of the oven. Now on 200, these took about 20 to 25 minutes to go brown, but everyone's oven is different, so just make sure you keep going until they look like these gorgeous movie stars. Now the best thing about the ciabatta, and these are swear word hot, is I must show off with the, see how light they were when I picked them up. They're absolutely gorgeous. They look nice and rustic. I think these look very gorgeous indeed. And what I want to show you is that lovely crunch. And the way we got that, remember I said, is just during the baking, I took it out and I just flicked it with a little bit of the water. I just put my little pastry brush in there and literally just did that on the top of them. Don't overthink it. You can just stick your hand in there like I showed you in the first place. And this is the lovely result. So if we can hear that lovely crunch that we get, I'll do it again. It is beautiful. And always if you tap it, it's got to sound hollow, and then you know it has cooked all the way through. So you should never really cut bread when it's hot, because it will not show the true texture. But using this very sexy knife, I'm going to show you those beautiful big holes in there, and it's chewy and it's light, and I can't wait to eat this with either some whipped butter or maybe even an extra virgin olive oil. Guys, happy baking, and please try this. As you can see, it is so easy to make. Enjoy!